And of course, today on Thursday, depending on when you're watching, listening to this show, Anthony Richardson had his pro day at the University of Florida, and now everybody's raving the greatest pro day of all time. Oh, the measurables, the arm, he hit the ceiling. I gotta stop the nonsense right now. And I was on Total Access on Thursday talking about this as well. Please do not overestimate what you see in these pro days. Anthony Richardson has not played enough football to be a first rounder. Although, as a Bears podcast, I should be encouraging teams. Oh, trade into the top 10. Come get Anthony Richardson. You need to trade with the Bears to come get Anthony Richardson. But the reality is, and this is what I fear, is somebody's going to look at this similar to the way that the Bears looked at Mitch Trubisky a number of years ago. There was a guy who played very limited college football going up against two guys in the draft who played for Power 5 teams, who played for national championships. This is how ridiculous, in hindsight, the Mitch Trubisky thing looks. When you look at Bryce Young and CJ Stroud and what they've been able to do at the collegiate level, imagine Anthony Richardson going second or first overall. I implore these teams not to do it. It's starting to give me, I'm triggered just watching this whole thing. I do because like the Bears are set. What do I care? And again, if some team wants to move into the top 10, please do it. Please come take the number 9 overall selection. But as you watch these pro days unfold, and as you listen to the madness of the mock drafts and everything like that, please don't fall for the hype of Anthony Richardson. But you know what? We've got so many great things to talk about today. Sammy, let's just go ahead and start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to a very special edition of the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank. It was opening day on Thursday. Hope springs eternal for all the fans of the Cubs and the Chicago White Sox or whatever baseball team that you root for. The NFL right now is allowing players to wear number 0. The McCaskey family has come out against Hard Knocks. There's a lot of things going on. So in a matter of moments, we're going to be joined by Dan Hanzus to talk about all that stuff. But first, I did want to take a few moments to say that support for the Sick Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. And that's right. I know over the last couple of years, people think of Manscaped as the premier grooming item for below the waist kind of stuff. But I'm here to tell you that I became a part of the Manscaped family because I don't know if you're aware, I'm bald and I have a beard. And I got to tell you, I finally decided to stop buying the cheap stuff on Amazon, getting the $10.99 razor that breaks down all the time, that jangles my face. Like there's times where they have to use makeup to cover up some of the mistakes that I made just trying to get ready for Total Access or Fantasy Live or anything like that. So I went to Manscaped, didn't realize that they have products for beards, for bald heads, and for all general grooming. So it's beyond what you've thought of it. If you want to switch up, don't skimp on your face and your head. This isn't like going to a burrito joint. Like you want the high end stuff. And if you go to manscaped.com right now, use the code SICKBEARS, you'll get 20% off and you can start looking dope like me. Look at this beard now. Look how clean I look. I've been looking great. And thanks to our friends at Manscaped for doing that. Now, we appreciate them doing that, but enough about that. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. George McCaskey this week came out in opposition to the Chicago Bears being on Hard Knocks. He sounded like your grandfather trying not to be in your TikTok video. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't know. I don't understand the mentality. So I wanted to get to the bottom of this. And so for that, I wanted to go to the very best person to talk about when we were in regards to Hard Knocks. Now, our friend, you know him from the Around the NFL podcast, the premier football podcast out there, non-fantasy, of course. He's also the writer of the Power Rankings on NFL.com and NFL Network, and he is our Hard Knocks aficionado. Please welcome to the show once again, Mr. Dan Hanzus, who joins us. Hello, sir. How are you?
What's up, Adam? Yeah, like God forbid. And you know, I was on last year, Adam, and I said like the both the Jets and the Bears, if things fall a certain way,
Yes.
in 2023, both those teams could be relevant and matter. I still believe it. And
100%. I'm with you.
And I'm with you. I'm with you on Justin Fields. That was the right move to roll forward with him and sell that draft pick. Everything about their plan I like. But the thing about Bears management, going out of their way, like, God forbid we make the Bears interesting again and relevant and put them out there on a national stage and a spotlight for NFL Films, who does it better than anyone in the world of making a team look fun and interesting. See Detroit Lions last year. Why would you? It just seems tired. It's like that old. I don't know if it makes them seem like we're more serious football men by saying things like that. Let the other 31 teams be interesting. No, you be interesting. The Bear fans have been waiting long enough for you to be interesting.
Yeah, it is. Has there ever been a team that you've watched on Hard Knocks and you came away with a worse impression where you're like, ugh, I don't want any part of that? I mean, it feels like every team you get fired up about.
Yeah, the Falcons that one year with Mike Smith as coach when he was wearing the Tevas or the Tevas. I wasn't feeling great about that team coming out of camp, but otherwise, yes, I'm with you.
And there's 4 teams right now that meet the criteria that they look for. I think it's like you got to have a coach that's at least in his second year, didn't make the playoffs, all these things. The teams are the Commanders, the Jets, some random team. I can't even, not interesting enough. And then the Bears.
Saints.
Who is Saints?
Yep.
And they got Derek Carr. So there's a little bit. Is there a team better? Like, if you're making a case, if you're sitting in a boardroom in New York right now, is there a team more compelling than the Chicago Bears? I will say the Jets with Aaron Rodgers have a very, very good case, but I still think that the Bears would be the team that you would want to focus on.
Yeah, I think the Bears are a really good choice. I think Rodgers would make the Jets compelling. And then I don't buy the logic because it doesn't make any sense. Like, oh yeah, have the Jets on again because arguably they had the best Hard Knock season. Well, you're not getting Rex Ryan back again. And the Rex Ryan dynamic with Mr. T at GM and Mark Sanchez there and all those personalities, that's what made that season. So at the same time, Rodgers, the Sacramento Kings just won a game recently to clinch the playoff spot. So the Jets are now the longest active playoff drought for a major professional sports team in North America. So there's a lot of heat and drama and around this idea of Rodgers saving the Jets after years of being irrelevant. But I mean, yes, I think the Bears absolutely make sense. They're spending money. They're building this roster up after like a hibernation. Nailed it. And they have Fields. They're going to have a great buzzy draft class coming in. There you have now a number 1 receiver in DJ Moore. And in general, I feel like it behooves the NFL, even if ownership or leadership of the Bears doesn't see it this way, to make the Bears sexy again, to make the Bears a team that people want to be paying attention to. And I think Hard Knocks is a perfect stage and primer for what's a season of Adam. And, you are a diehard Bears fan. Like, when's the last time you were this excited and optimistic about a Chicago Bears season?
Never. I think coming off the 2018 season, and then you still had a little bit of apprehension because so many things went well in 2018. Like every domino hit for the Bears to get that run to the playoffs. And of course, Cody Parkey double doink ended up ending everything there. Going into 2019, there was a lot of optimism, but I think that most people, because with Mitch, you had this idea of like, he could be good, similar to what I was talking about Anthony Richardson, like he could be good. I think Justin Fields, because I watched him in college and I think that he's a great quarterback and I think he's going to be the guy who leads us back to the playoffs. I think there's a lot of optimism, and the Jets are a great team. Like there is nothing, I don't mean this to be like anti-Jets. I think because you look at that, Aaron Rodgers aside, I think that Sauce Gardner is interesting enough to carry a show on his own. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, like the Jets still have a lot of fun personalities, but I think there's something about Rodgers where you're like, why are we doing this? Like we've seen enough of him. Like when you're watching the challenge on MTV, like, we've seen enough. We don't need
more Johnny Bananas. Yeah.
Well, let's not besmirch Johnny Bananas, but there are some personalities that we can do without. See, now you're hitting too close. This is where I will get heated. But there is a newness to the Chicago Bears and being fresh and being in a major media market, something that they've never
Yes.
really been able to tap into since the 80s, the 85 Bears. Because even the, 2000 Lovie Smith did well, but they didn't capture the imagination like the 85 Bears. And not many teams have been able to do that. So when the networks and the league and they're getting together, I know the Bears don't want to do this, but the NFL can force this on them. Am I misguided in that? The NFL can be like, no.
That's the whole hook of it. That's what was agreed upon. I don't know if that's happened yet, or at least publicly, it hasn't ever been reported that a team did it against its will. But yeah, technically that's what they agreed to, and they could be told you're doing it. But I don't know if that's how it actually works. I think it's more like, hey, do this so we don't have to force you to do it.
Yeah, I'm curious too if it's just ownership, because the Bears are one of those family-owned organizations. They've been around since the 1920s, steeped in history. Funny enough, though, George Halas did everything he could in his power to make sure that the NFL became relevant. When the NFL started in the 1920s, it was well behind baseball, boxing, horse racing, things that you would never see of. And I initially thought George, this is a like you were saying, like a serious football thing, but it's like, no. George Halas was always ahead of the game. And I feel like this is something where the Bears, I don't know, how do you get them to do it? Like I keep saying the grandkids, like tell the Halas grandkids, you want to be on, have them convince their grandparents or the great grandparents they want to go out and do this.
Yeah, I don't know, like if Hard Knocks is grabbing the youth of America. I don't know if it's an interesting way to look at it, but I would say look at the Lions. Like, who was a bigger laughing stock than the Lions for years? And even last year, going into Hard Knocks, that team was they were 3-13 or whatever it was. In a way, and I think one of the many reasons I think people that weren't Lions fans grew to really root for the Lions this past season was there was this the spirit about the team that Dan Campbell kind of led the charge on. That we sucked last year and we've sucked forever, but we're cool with cameras coming in here because we believe that we're building something here, and why not have cameras in here showing the progress this organization makes? And we feel like the season that will follow Hard Knocks is going to show this growth that we're so confident in. If the Bears truly do believe they are on this path to relevance and being a player in the NFC again, welcome those cameras in. There's nothing to hide. In fact, it's the opposite. Like, people like me, I'm a fan of a specific team, but I was rooting for the Lions all year because I got to know the players and the coaches and the front office better from that show. And you're like, wow, this is a team I'm now invested in. So I would say the Bears and all these teams, especially division rivals, they're super plugged in. All these coaches and GMs watch Hard Knocks. How do you watch that and come away with the old stodgy take on Hard Knocks? Like, it's too intrusive. Relax. Just trust the process. And if you believe in your leadership and you believe in your players, you'll come off well.
Was there any opposition? Were the Lions hesitant to do it? I don't remember this being an issue.
I don't think so,
because I don't follow the Lions closely enough to be like, no. But when you look at it, the Ford family kind of falls into the same category as the Halas family, the McCaskey, the Halas family, where it's like old school ownership. That the Ford families owned that team since the 30s. That's not a team that you would normally think about being a Hard Knocks type team that became stars. Like you said, even people who rooted for the Bears didn't hate the Lions because you're like, I'm kind of attached to that team. Are there guys on the Bears that you would want to see, that you would want to see more of? Do you want to see more of Justin Fields? Do you want to see more of any of their other guys?
Yeah, I think it starts with Fields. And I think like everybody else, there's an idea, especially when he's had those spurts and those runs. You see a guy that could be this generational type talent. And then I think so part of what makes it compelling, and I know you and other Bears fans that are all the way in, you kind of shut it out, but there are people that still say, well, is he ever going to become the passer? Is he going to be that guy? So there's that little bit of doubt that might surround the building, even if inside the building, they don't think that way. So I'd like to see just how he commands a locker room, what his vibe is. I'd like to, track the preseason against what we're seeing on training camp and what we see based on the practice, reading the beat reporters. I like the wide receiver room. is really fun. And it's like, I would like to learn more about Chase Claypool, a guy that like, when in Pittsburgh flashed as a huge talent, but then you heard things about like, is there a personality disconnect that rubbed the Steelers the wrong way and maybe led to that trade? What's he like? What's DJ Moore like? Who's all you hear and you know his number. And if you're a fantasy fan, you know that he's a big producer, but like, who is DJ Moore? He's kind of been in purgatory in Carolina. Now all of a sudden he's this number one player. So yeah, I mean, the defensive side of things, like for me, the Bears are kind of a mystery in terms of what that side of the ball is. So just like that's how it felt with the Lions last year. There were skilled players that you knew on Detroit's offense, but defense, there was you were learning about all these young players. Who's the linebacker that was undrafted and ended up a starter for them?
Jack Sanborn, our guy?
Oh, Rodrigo.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But Sanborn is a nice like parallel to Rodrigo. I'd like to learn more about him. It's just it's a good roster for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. And you know what? They've had some experience as well. Like Matt Eberflus was part of the Indianapolis Colts organization that was part of an in-season Hard Knocks. Ian Campbell. Was it Ian Campbell? Somebody was with one of the Bears front office guys was also in the mix too with one of the other teams. It never comes off poorly. And I don't know if I get out, if I'm hyperbolic when I say this, but if the Bears continue to progress and they have some success, there's a real opportunity here because the organization has been making great strides in a lot of areas, going out there, hiring an assistant GM, Ian Cunningham. They did not have one before forever. Ryan Pace wanted one, never got one. Ryan Poles was able to bring one in. They're going to be building a new stadium in Arlington Heights, presumably. Like this team is really starting to embrace the modern NFL, doing things like a lot of teams do and really looking at other avenues for revenue. And then it comes to Hard Knocks, which is why it was so jarring. Like, oh, we're so close. Are they just trying to be, I don't know. Are they trying to, there's something about the Bears too, that sometimes they're too protective. And you hear it from the beat writers too, like, oh, we couldn't be out of practice at this time, or we couldn't do this. And I know every team does that, but it always feels like the Bears a little bit more. Maybe they're doing stuff like that, but man, I want to
loosen the reins a little bit. Let people fall in love with you. And how did they do with that NFLPA release the studies of the facilities? How did the Bears rank and all that?
Better. They've done a lot better. They used to go out there and
show off your facility. It's a pitch.
Hallis Hall is actually really cool. I was impressed the first time that I stepped on there. I haven't been to many facilities, but Hallis Hall, it's funny because it's in an industrial park in suburban Illinois, not far from Arlington Heights where the stadium's going to be. And you go out and you go by like the headquarters of Discover is like nearby, like just random. You're like, oh, the Discover headquarters are right here. And then all of a sudden, here's the Bears facility. It's really cool. And they got a lot of room. And I think that this would be the kind of things. And you know what? Players see this. Players, from around the NFL, they look and they're like, this is pretty dope. That looks like a lot of fun. Like the NFL Films is not going to make you look terrible. And I have enough confidence in the Bears personalities to shine through. We would be the sentimental favorites. Let's turn this around because I'm tired of people making fun of the Bears. Tired of saying Justin Fields can't throw and all this stuff. This is an opportunity to face it head on.
And it was George McCaskey who said that. And who's ahead of George in the pecking order? Who can tell George to pipe down on this?
No, he's the guy. Like he
needs some advisors to gently. Is he like a Logan Roy figure? Like, are we able to approach him?
No, he's super cool. Like the McCaskey family is really cool, obviously. And this is the thing too, like Virginia McCaskey is the lone heir. She was the daughter of George Hallis. Her story needs to be told. She's 100 years old. We need to know more about Virginia McCaskey. The entire
when you could do that? Episode 3.
This is the perfect opportunity.
When you get into episode 3 and 4 and you need that kind of filler in the middle of the season, Bears history, there's very few teams that can match it in terms of the history and DNA of our league. Come on now.
There's a whole episode you could devote to the fact that I know that Aaron Rodgers loves to say that he owns the Bears. The Packers exist because the Bears, specifically George Hallis, kept that franchise afloat. personally kept that franchise going, and yet we're not telling those stories because they don't want to do Hard Knocks, because our grandparents don't like change. And I love George. He's such a nice
guy. I'm glad
we
did this, right? Because now I feel I didn't have a strong feeling before. Now I am strongly in the Bears, because Rodgers is going to hand wave this to Woody's going to come to him and be like, hey, I really want us to do this again. Rodgers will hand wave him and say no. And then the Bears are the next best option for me. And there's a very compelling case. We just got to get George to reconsider. We'll
get George in on this. All right, well, cool. We'll get him. We'll get I think his grandkids would love it. So I think that's where you got to do it. We got to approach the family, the younger ones, and be like, you guys, we got to do this. Just like when you're sitting around Thanksgiving and your grandfather doesn't want to be on Instagram Reels, and you're like, we're doing this. Come take this spot. And it comes out amazing. And nobody's upset that you did this, and it comes out amazing, and nobody regrets it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm glad that I got you.
Do you remember the episode? Do you remember the episode of The Office when Michael and Dwight go to the head of Dunder Mifflin's home to try to convince him? Like, maybe me and you can do that. We can go to the McClaskey house.
Yes, let's do that. We'll hang out there. We'll have the big bottle of Sprite or whatever. Replenish your fluids. We'll ambush George McCaskey as he's walking on. Listen, and this is a great time to be trying stuff like that when you're an NFL employee. Like they're not.
We've been working here for a long time, Adam. We have rope, I think, even in these times of uncertainty. Like, I think we could show up at McCaskey's house and be okay.
I think it'd be delightful. I think people would find that very charming. I'm glad that you're on board. We're not going to start the pitch and make this happen. And of course, our friends at CHGO and all these other Bears, the Tape Never Lies Network, everybody's on board with this. So we're going to try to convince the McCaskey families. We've got Dan Hanses on board as well. I do want to ask you a couple of things before I let you go. I promised I wouldn't keep you too long, because this was the crux of what I wanted to talk to you about. But over the last couple of days, the number 0, they've allowed players to start doing this. Where do you come on? Where do you come out on the number 0? Do you like it? Are you for it? Are you against it?
I just find it jarring mentally, because 0 is not good typically in sports. In general, the number 0 doesn't inspire greatness in my mind, and so I don't quite understand. But I also understand players want to stand out, and so there's a long line of players that want to get the number. I think who came out and said, it was
Micah Parsons.
Parsons said 0. Also, who's the wide receiver that just got off the gambling ban?
Calvin Ridley was the first one.
Ridley came out and he was like, he said, oh yeah, I can't wait, I'm number 0. And then he shouted out the Jags equipment department's Twitter handle, which is funny that Jags equipment has a Twitter handle. So players are pumped about it. So I'm not gonna have an issue. I had a bigger issue that now kickers could be like number 93.
I need that. I need that.
Do you think your kicker is making that kick? Is he making the 46-yarder with the wind blowing left to right, down 2 in the last minute? He's trotting out to the field and he's number 93. You think he's splitting the uprights with that kick?
I love it.
Hell no.
I like when they wear numbers in the 20s or 40s. Or 30s. That's my.
I disagree there. I got it.
Number 27. Like, that's such a cool number. The one number I hate for a kicker is when they wear number 6, because it implies you missed the extra point. What are you doing? You're already going out there implying that you've missed the kick. No.
Reminds me of the longtime Tampa Bay Rays reliever, Grant Balfour.
Oh my gosh. Anytime I see a major league pitcher with a single digit number, I don't trust them. You're not a good, nope, I don't get it. Get out of there. I don't like the way that you, the way that you go about your business. I think, and by the way, Kyle.
I'm anti-0.
Anti-0. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Olden Paldenese, when he was number 0, because he was O, like it's an O instead of a 0. That makes a little bit more. That
I love
works.
that.
That's allowed. I do want to say, I know Kyle Brandt was asking about the worst number that you could plot. What's the worst number? Do you have a worst number in sports? I always felt like 43 was just like a number. I know Palomalu roared, but I'm like, it's just not a handsome number to me.
Yeah. Did Kyle mention 38 or 39? I feel like the upper 30s, lower 40s
gets rough.
Is kind of the twilight zone of numbers. You'll come across some, Jackie Robinson was 42, Mariano Rivera.
Yeah.
Ronnie Lott, I believe, was 42.
42.
So maybe 42 is an outlier there, but around there, I don't sense a lot of greatness. So anything, let's say 37 to 44, accepting 42, I think is a bit of a trouble spot.
Yeah, you get a running back wearing number 39, and you're like, ugh, that's not,
he's not exploding
work
at the line of scrimmage. No.
Who was that? Like Steven Jackson, I think, had number 39, and you're like, nah, you would be
he's
fast.
Not hitting the hole. Yeah.
You'd be faster if you had 25 or something. I don't know about that. But before I let you go, I do want to point out, again, you're our Hard Knocks correspondent. And of course, we're happy to have you on board to push the Bears into being on Hard Knocks. But I do want to let everybody know that you do power rankings for NFL Network and NFL.com throughout the season. You recently updated your rankings after free agency. I'm very pleased to report the Bears are up 5 spots. It's 26. Up 5 spots. So I take it that you have a very positive outlook on what they've been doing over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I feel good about the Bears, and it's for the reasons we stated earlier, that they just seem to have a plan, and I think it could have been and was very tempting, I imagine, or could have been tempting to roll and move Fields and bring in one of these kids and restart the rookie clock and all that stuff. But at a certain point, I feel like we've seen enough from him to say, no, let's actually give him a chance. Let's build around him. And that's what this season to me is about. I mean, I even like what they've done with their tight end room with Cole Kmet and now Bobby Tonyan, who I think is a little bit underrated. I think that's a good tandem. We talked about the wide receivers. So yeah, I think the thing is, the really difficult thing with the power rankings, this specific edition, this time of year, it's like, I don't feel great about putting anyone in that like 25 to 32 range. It just doesn't, like, some teams deserve it. Like I have Arizona at 32, the Colts where they stand 31. But you have to fill out those 20s spots. Cause I could honestly see myself putting the Bears like in the high teens or even around 20 or so, but that felt too strong because they lost so many games to end last season and we got to actually see them play.
Right.
So jumping them 5 spots to me was like saying, I like the vision. I like the plan. Let's see how the draft goes. I think my next power rankings is post-draft. I assume if that goes to plan and we have a lot of optimism there, I might even push them up a few more spots toward the 22, 23, maybe 21 zone.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I look at. I wasn't looking at the specific number because, like you said, a lot of it's not relevant right now until games are played and things of that nature. I was curious to see who is the biggest movers. By my naked eye, I didn't really go through and but I felt like 5 was the biggest mover of anybody out there. And that's significant because Ryan Poles inherited a situation where last season he had no first round pick. He went out there, found his left tackle of the future, Braxton Jones, played every down, every snap, every game last year for the Chicago Bears. Looks like Justin Fields is the guy. Then he got DJ Moore, which I thought was a great stroke. The Bears, of all the, how did you feel as kind of an outsider, not an outsider, but like, what did you make? I know that you spoke in glowing terms about DJ Moore, but you felt like that was a good deal, right?
Yeah, I thought it was the thing I hate about trades like that is everyone immediately has to announce who's the winner and loser. And what I thought when I saw the trade, I was like, oh, that was good for both sides. The Bears 100%. Took full advantage, I thought, of what the opportunity they had to get multiple premium draft picks and a number 1 wideout. And the Panthers are not going to complain about anything if the QB they pick turns into the guy that they've been searching for since Cam Newton, washed up like that. That's been the Panthers there have been teams that have been in the QB wilderness longer than Carolina, but it's been a particularly frustrating half decade in Carolina because they've swung and missed so many times on different guys that they wanted, from Deshaun Watson to Matthew Stafford. The list kind of goes on and on. So now that allowed them to control the draft board and really put their stamp on the new direction of their franchise. So that's going to come at a cost. So I thought both sides really came out on top, unless they botched the QB pick, and then the Bears probably kill him in the draft in this trade. But you have to wait like a couple of years to really know who won the trade.
Yeah, and if CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, whomever it is, if they're a competent quarterback, Justin Fields continues to develop, then you look back at it and you're like, okay, both teams come out of it smelling pretty good. And you know what? When you have your quarterback settled, like last year watching the Bears, personally, I felt that Justin Fields was our guy no matter what. And I'm like, okay, like watching those games is a little bit different knowing, well, he's going to get help eventually our quarterback situation is settled, though. And if Carolina gets their guy and CJ Stroud or Bryce Young goes out there and plays very well, then you can watch those games knowing, like, I know we don't have a first-round pick next year, but we got our quarterback and it was worth the price of admission.
And there's no, I guess my last thing is my question to you. And I'd be the same way as a Jets fan if, like, Zach Wilson flashed the way Justin Fields did. I'd be all the way in.
Yeah.
There is not even, because you follow the college game closer than me, there's not even a sliver deep inside you that's thinking to yourself, should we have gone the other direction? Or you're all the way in. It was never a doubt that you stick with the guy you got.
All the way in, 100%. I would have Justin Fields over Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. If Caleb Williams was available in this draft, that could be a different conversation. But there wasn't a guy, there wasn't a Trevor Lawrence type, Andrew Luck type where you're like, oh yeah, this is far and away. Like
we're taking a guy with a generational tag as it is.
Yeah. Because even now, like the discussion is like, we still don't know who Carolina is picking. There isn't a clear cut number one. So why would the Bears give up on Justin Fields? So that part of it's fine. I still know as a sports fan who can sometimes be pessimistic, like there's always room for things to go very wrong. So we'll wait and see how that goes, but very encouraged by the way everything is working out right now. And so I would like all that to be shown on Hard Knocks so that my faith can be restored a little bit more. What a great way to tie that up. But listen, I know that you had a very busy day. We recorded this on Thursday. Want to thank you for coming in. You've always been one of my I've told you this time and time again. You've always been one of my favorites here at the NFL Network. So it's always fun to have you on. Let's do this again real soon. Thanks for taking the time, and I'll see you around the building.
Sounds great.
All right, there he goes. The great Dan Hanses. Wonderful to have him stop by. Him and I taking a road trip to Chicago at some point to try to convince George McCaskey to put the Bears on Hard Knocks. Thanks to everybody who joined us here today. Really, really appreciate you dropping by. Once again, reminder, manscaped.com. Use the promo code SickBear. If you need a beard trimmer, you want something for your head, you want razors, boxer. Oh, I've got some of the boxer shorts. Amazing. Whatever you've heard, whatever, like what, I don't know if you go with like Bombas or Tommy John. No. You got to check out these boxer shorts as well. Go to manscaped.com. Use the code SickBears, 20% off. The shipping is free. That's a big thing too. Like a lot of times you go on, you want to order something. You're like, oh yeah, this doesn't seem like a bad idea. And you're like, oh my God, it's $20 for shipping. No. The shipping is free. So think about that. You're going to get 20% off. The boxers are like $40. So what does that come out to? 30? Like whatever. Go do what you got to do. But check out, man, if you've been waiting for this, it took me a long time to come around to it. Again, I used to cut my head and do all this stuff. Now I've put that aside. I said, I'm going to finally put down some money and do the right thing. So I went to manscaped.com, and I got to be honest with you, have not regretted it for a single moment. And I don't regret having you here today. So thanks everybody for putting this together. We will see you Tuesday night for Take It to the Rank. Carmen Vitale will be joining us once again as we get closer to the NFL draft. So until that time, bear down, and Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.